אנגלית היא זיג ברברית כזאתי, שכל פעם שאני חוץ לארץ העברית שלי התמוטטת קצת. So, I'm delivering this lecture, unfortunately, at the time when the very meaning of history, once again, התמוטטת. The meaning of history is what we are looking for in our research. After all, the text, the documents, the Talmud, the dialogues of Plato, all of these are just the parts of history. And unless we do understand the meaning of history, we do not understand the text. And unless we do not understand the text, we do not understand the meaning of history. Now, the history is secretive, mysterious, and the documents are mysterious. There are actually two meanings, two ideas when we are speaking about esotericism. Usually we keep in mind something like secretive teaching barred from those who are not initiated into that kind of mysteries. And speaking about Talmudic documents, we'll probably remind Mishnah Hagiga, something like Maaseh Bereshit or Maaseh Merkava. I'm not going to speak about that kind of esotericism. What I'm going to speak about is the esotericism of the texts, artistic texts, the texts produced with a huge amount of artistry, the texts which would combine philosophical and artistic meanings, and that kind of text was characterized by Martin Heidegger and Jacques Derrida as the texts that actually combine revealing with concealing. They are both revealing and concealing their meanings. Moreover, as Derrida says, a text is not a text unless it hides from the first comer, from the first glance, the law of its composition and the rules of its game. But speaking about different kind of texts, we could differentiate between what we must call Aristotelian essay or tractate and the texts which would be Plato-like, like Platonic dialogues. The Aristotelian tractates, and they are actually the ancestors of all our scholarly papers, they start with a thesis and they end with a conclusion. And between both of them there is a chain of arguments which stick to the topic of the essay. So there is nothing like this neither in the Talmud nor in Platonic dialogue nor in the commentaries of Philo. They are built on totally different principles. And speaking about Plato, there is no thesis in the beginning. Usually the ending is totally operatic, which means that there is no solution of the problem which we would await for. And what is in between the beginning and the ending is a chain of diversions and digressions going in different ways. And we usually call it Socratic dialogue. So there are two ways to find, to find a meaning of all these texts. The one way is to eliminate all the artistry, all the composition, all the digressions of Platonic dialogue, and kind of extract a pure philosophical and syllogistical meaning from this dialogue to a kind of to simplify this dialogue to a Platonic, to an Aristotelian tractate. And this is the way most of the scholars are going. Most of the scholars are doing their papers about Plato in this way. The brilliant exception is a paper of Jacques Derrida, well-known paper, which was included into his book called Dissemination. The name of the paper is The Pharmacy of Plato. And in this paper, Derrida would decipher the dialogue called Phaedrus. Now, Phaedrus usually is believed to be a very uncouth, very strange and compositionally weak dialogue. It goes in different ways. It combines a lot of topics. It starts with if we follow the composition of the dialogue, it starts with Plato and the young man whose name is Phaedrus going out of the gates of Athens to somewhere where they are sitting, they are speaking, they are discussing the traditions of the place where they are sitting. They are reading, or Phaedrus is reading a tractate by Lysias, a rhetorician Lysias, about love. They're speaking about love, they're speaking about writing, they're speaking about oral speech, contradiction between graphe, which is writing, and logos, which is oral speech, is described, and so on and so forth. But no composition, no single topic, nothing. And most of scholars would say that this is a very a failed dialogue. But that contradicts to our artistic perception of the dialogue, because the dialogue is beautiful. It is really beautiful. It is very clever, very smart. How could it be that the beauty and the absence of strict syllogistic plot are combined in one text? Now, instead of following the syllogistic chain of the arguments in the dialogue, Derrida is following the system of metaphors. He is understanding the dialogue as a system of metaphors which underlie the surface of the dialogue, and he starts with a goddess, a minor goddess, a nymph called Pharmakeia, pharmacy, which coincidentally also means administration of drugs. And he differentiates between two meanings of the same words, pharmakon. One is drug as poison, and one is drug as medicine. From this point, he is coming to another notion, the notion of pharmakeos. Now, pharmakeos is a sorcerer, a cheater, a person who is cheating another one, and who is the sorcerer, the cheater. Of course, this is a sophist, a rhetorician who is cheating his listeners by the beauty of his words. But at the same time, Pharmakeus, a sorcerer, is also Socrates, the character, the main character of Plato, because he is also attracting a kind of cheating his listeners by the mastery of his dialogues, of his dialectic. Now, what is the difference in that case between the dialectic of Socrates and the sophistry of the rhetorician? The difference is not about the truth, actually, by itself. The difference is the readiness of Socrates to die for his dialectics. The rhetorician are selling the sophistry for money and for career, and Socrates does not need neither money nor career. He wants only aletheia, truth, and he is ready to die for this aletheia. This is the difference. And then Derrida is going to another wording, to another word which is not actually present in the dialogue, but which kind of is looming behind the dialogue. And this word is pharmakos. Pharmakos could mean the same as pharmakeos, the sorcerer, the cheater, but at the same time it also means a scapegoat. Pharmakos is a scapegoat. Actually, there are two pharmakoi, one male and one female, and each year in Athens, in order to rectify, to clean the city from some vicious disease, Athenians were taking these two one male and one female, where they were picking up ugly persons, ugly male and ugly female. They were beating them to the death. They were beating them on their genitals until they die, and then they burn them. And then Socrates, he was born on the day of beating and killing these two persons, this pharmakoi. B, he was assassinated by, he had to drink a pharmakon, the poison. Now, all these logoi, all these words are metaphors. This is the system of metaphors. And if we understand this system of metaphors, we understand the meaning of the dialogue, which is not about just writing and oral word, which is not about the love. The meaning is totally different. Now, going to the Talmud. Again, the Talmud is extremely bad organized. If we take any tractate, the halachic topic of the tractate has very little to do with the contents of the tractate. Let us take, for example, a tractate Gittin. Evidently, the contents of the tractate should be the laws of get, the letter of divorce. However, if we read Bavli Gittin, immediately we see sugiyot, fantastic sugiyot, great sugiyot, with no visible relationship towards get, like a huge sugiya about the uprising of the Jews against the Romans, which starts with the notion of Sikarikon, and then it goes to the story about Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, and so on and so forth, and ends actually with the story about the disciple of a builder, of a carpenter. Why this sugiya is found in the midst of this Gittin tractate? Again, let us look into the metaphors of this tractate. If we look into the metaphors of this tractate, we would find that all this huge sugiya is about the divorce between God and Israel. It's not just first. The ending of this sugiya is about divorce. The carpenter was cheated by his disciple, who took off his wife, who deceived. He took off his wife, took off his money, and then in the end, he forced his former master to serve the disciple and his new wife, and to bring wine to them. And the carpenter is weeping, and his maot are dropping into the cups of the husband and the former wife of the master. And in the ending of the tractate, we see the discussion about the permissibility of the divorce, it is permissible to divorce the second and the third wife. It is not permissible to divorce Eshet Britecha, Eshet Neurecha. And here we see the quotation from Malachi. And who is actually Eshet Britecha? When you divorce Eshet Britecha and Eshet Neurecha, then even the altar is dropping Dmaot. Now, who is the altar? The altar is God. And who is Eshet Britecha and Eshet Neurecha? Israel is Eshet Britecha and Eshet Neurecha. This is about the divorce between God and Israel. And all the things about the divorce, about the uprising between the Jews against the Romans, all the disasters, all the terrible things that happen, these are in the framework of the divorce. And if we take, for example, a tractate, Shabbat, Bavli Shabbat, again, we can find a central metaphor. And the central metaphor, probably the metaphor of the Shabbat lamp. Actually, they are taking the framers of this tractate, they were taking Mishlei, Ner Hashem Neshamat Adam. But in Mishlei, Ner Hashem Neshamat Adam, it's just Ner Adam Neshamat Ner Hashem, it's just Ner. In the tractate, it's not just Ner, it's Shabbat Ner. And if it is Shabbat Ner, this Ner theoretically should not be put off, but it is put off on the eve of Shabbat, which is strange. And what does it mean? The Ner of Shabbat actually is either David or Mashiach. And Mashiach dies on the eve of Shabbat. And this is in the first huge sugya about permissibility of putting off the Ner, the light, if there is a sick man on Shabbat. And in the end of the tractate we find a huge sugya, which is a commentary on Kohelet, where all these messianic ideas are deliberated, and it ends actually with the idea of the 8th day, when Mashiach and everybody are going to rebirth, when there is another world, and so on and so forth. So let us speak a little bit about Bavli Ta'anit. Again, Bavli Ta'anit has a very strict and a very clear halakhic topic, and the topic is the public fast, which is actually Ta'anit. But then again, both Mishnah Ta'anit and Bavli Ta'anit are loaded with different topics which has nothing to do with the major topic of the tractate. Speaking about the metaphors of this tractate, we immediately confront the same dual opposition which was found by Derrida in Phaedrus. This is opposition between medicine and poison. In the same world, in Platonic dialogue, this is pharmakon, which is both medicine and poison. In Bavli Ta'anit, this is some chaim and some mavet. Actually, the tractate is discussing from the very beginning the timing of Ta'anit. Since it is discussing the timing of Ta'anit, how the Ta'anit relates to the rains, then it pops up that the rain could be both detrimentous and benevolent. And everything, including shellak, including snow, could be detrimentous and benevolent. And then the saying of Rabbi Benar, whoever engages in Torah study for its own sake, his Torah is turned for him into a healing medicine, Sam Chaim. As it is said, it is a tree of life to those who hold on to it. And further, it shall be a health to your belly, and for whoever finds me finds life. But whoever engages in Torah study is not for its sake, his Torah study is turned for him into a poisonous medicine, Sam Hamavet. As it is written, my doctrine shall drop, Yarov, as the rain. And the word for drop uses later than you also for the word death, Arifah, in line with the usage, and they shall break, Arfu, the Haif's neck, there in the valley. A very important notion of Arifah comes in, and we later on will see the metaphoric meaning. Here the metaphoric meaning is clear, and here the dual opposition between Sam Chaim and Sam Mavet pertains to the different behavior of Talmidei Chachamim. And this different behavior further on is described either as Hagun, decent, or it may be undecent, which is very similar with what Plato is telling about proper and improper behavior in the terms of propeus, prepon, and apropos. From this point, please, the second. From this point, we're going to the sayings about Arifah. Is the second. Then further on, the third fragment, again, dual opposition between proper and improper behavior of Talmidei Chachamim, and in this case there is also dual opposition between the notion of iron and copper. Again, nearly from the same fragment from Deuteronomy, from Dvarim, the tractate extracts two notions of iron and copper. Either the land of the promised land is benevolent and brings you the stones of copper, or if the Jews behave improperly, then the sky is going to be like iron and copper. And again, the same pharmacon. The pharmacon, which could be both medicine and poison. Then the fourth fragment, it's again about this opposition. This is from Deuteronomy. And the fifth fragment. Let us skip the fifth fragment. The sixth fragment, again about iron and copper. All of this again is about proper and improper behavior of Talmidei Chachamim. Then, since we are confronting the notion of Arifah, it pertains to cutting the trees. And who are the trees? The trees are, again, Talmidei Chachamim. And they are compared either to fruitful trees or to unfruitful trees. If they are behaving properly, then do not cut them. If they behave improperly, cut them. And this is in the seventh fragment. For the tree of the field is man, and so on and so forth. This is from Deuteronomy. Now, the entire chapter, the entire first chapter is going through dual oppositions between proper and improper behavior, which is either punished by Arifa or not punished by Arifa. And this proper and improper behavior in the end is merging to the proper and improper behavior of certain persons according to their position. It's not about general rule of behavior. It is about the rule of behavior for that class of human beings, which is very close to the Roman notion of decorum. Decorum is something which the certain class of Roman citizens should stick to. In that case, the first chapter of Bavli Ta'anit speaks, it's the 8th fragment, 8. Ein adam chashuf rashai lefol al panav, ele im ken naaseh keyashua ben nun, ein adam chashuf rashai lehagog sak, and so on and so forth. This is about the behavior of Adam Chashuv. And then the 9th fragment. Lo akol leora velo akol lesimcha, tzadikim leora vayasharim lesimcha, tzadikim leora dichtiv or zaroa letzadikim. This is the Hilim. Leyesharim simcha dichtiv leyeshrei lev simcha. This is actually a verse of Psalm which could be understood and which should be understood properly as a symmetrical composition. The two halves of the same verse actually mean the same. But the Talmud cuts this verse into two halves and divides the meaning of the verse. In the first part of the verse, it is about tzaddikim. And tzaddikim, probably, they are the scholars, Talmidei Chachamim. And the second half of the verse is about Yashrei Lev. And Yashrei Lev, properly, if not Amei Haaretz, but at least people are not so... they do not belong to Talmidei Chachamim, and they have simcha. So this is actually a very severe statement. The world we are living in is a world of deprivation, the world of deficiency. On one hand, we have tzaddikim without simcha, though they have Torah, or of Torah. On one hand, you have simple people without or without Torah, though they have simcha. And this is the ending of the first chapter. A very important point. Usually the meaning of the tractate, of a tractate, is in the ending of one of the first chapter and in the ending of the entire tractate. Now the ending of the entire tract of the first chapter is about this division, dual opposition between tzaddikim and Yashrei Lev. If we go to the third chapter of the tractate, immediately we find the same division between tzaddikim and Yashrei Lev, and who is the example of Yashrei Lev. This is Honi Ameagel, who is being chastised by Rabbi Shimon ben Shetach. What is his wording? This is 11. If you were not horny, I should decree a ban of excommunication, so on. Concerning you, Scripture said, let your father and your mother be glad, and let let her that bore you rejoice. This is Mishlei. And again we have the notion of simcha. Simcha belongs to Honi Amag. Please. Ниже.
12?
11.
Выше.
The meaning of Simcha, the chastising of Choni HaMe'agel, is actually the same of the is actually how Pharisees are criticizing Jesus. Let me quote this point. This is in Matthew. Then came to him the disciples, not Pharisees actually, the disciples of John, saying, "Why do we and the Pharisees fast off?" Again, the notion of Ta'anit, by the way. "But thy disciples not fast." And Jesus said unto him, "Can the children of the bride chamber mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? But the days will come when the bridegroom shall be taken from them, and then they shall fast." The idea of Ta'anit is postponed. The Ta'anit is postponed because where is Jesus or where is Choni HaMe'agel, there is Simcha. Now, at least the first two chapters have something to do with the notion of Ta'anit, while the last, fourth chapter, evidently have nothing to do with the notion of Ta'anit. It starts please 12. It starts with the Mishnah Ta'anit first. Here. Mishnah Ta'anit starts with this statement: "Bishlosha prakim kohanim nos'im et kapeihem arba pa'amim b'yom." And then, since there are these shlosha prakim, then the first paragraph, the first occasion is Ta'anit, Ta'aniyot. So Mishnah skips over the first occasion. So the first occasion actually connects the fourth chapter to the rest of the tractate, and this is the only connection by association. That's it. But the second occasion, the Ma'amadot, and in bringing forth the words of Rabbi Akiva, if there is an offering of wood, there is no delegation at the afternoon service. Now, from no Ma'amadot. From Ma'amadot, in this way, we are going to the offerings of wood. And then the offering of wood is being developed. Let us recollect that in the first chapter, the Talmud was speaking about Arifat Eitzim. Arifat Eitzim. And who were the Eitzim? Of course, the Talmidei Chachamim. Now, in the fourth chapter, the same motive is going forth, but then the wood offering occurs on 9 occasions per year. One of these occasions is the 15th of Av, and when Av comes, rejoicing diminishes, since but there were no days better for Israelites than the 15th of Av and the Day of Atonement in the past. And then we have the pompous, the beautiful ending of Mishnaic tractate, which evidently has nothing to do with the rest of the tractate. And the simplest way to explain this is just to say that nearly each Talmudic or Mishnaic tractate is being finished by something rhetorically connected to the hopes of Israel, to the resurrection, Tchiat Mitim, something like this. But let us look more attentively to the contents of the Bavli, Masechet Ta'anit. And then let us look into 14th. This is about... No, ниже.
14.
14.
Okay.
14. Now, when the 15th of Av arrives, the power of sun diminishes and the world no longer cut trees for the altar, again cutting trees. Yes? And then, because it would not dry sufficiently, said Rabbi Manasseh, they call it the day of the breaking of the axe. And from that day onwards, he who adds will add, and he who doesn't add will be added. What is the meaning of will be added? Rabbi Joseph stated as a Tanaite rule. His mother will bury him. So this is a very strange statement. Actually, the Talmud should somehow explain this statement, and the explanation is not so clear. But the nature of the statement is clear when we compare it to the New Testament. Now, the person will be added unto his people in the manner that Jacob was added unto his people. Rashi comments as follows: he who does not add night hours to his Torah studies, and this Rashi's commentary is actually totally artificial, has nothing to do. Actually, the pericope immediately precedes the triumphant eschatological ending of the tractate. So let us read the quotation from Luke. I will read it. Luke 23:31. And now also the axe is laid unto the root of the trees. Every tree therefore which bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into fire. Arifat Eitzi. Now, who are those who are going to be cut? Those fruits who are not bringing good fruits. Let us remember the first chapter, where the Talmidei Chachamim are divided into fruitful and unfruitful. Now, in the end of the day, the Eitzim are going to be saved in the Talmud and cut in the New Testament. Why? Because according to the Talmud there is hope for Israel. According to Matthew there is no hope. For Luke there is no hope for Israel. And the dry Eitzim are going to be cut. In the Talmud, the Eitzim are not dry, they are wet. Actually, the same dual opposition as in Luke. In Luke, we have they are either ugroi, wet, or they are dry. The same opposition we find in the Talmud, either dry or wet. And the hope is that on the 9th of Av, the trees are going to be wet, and then the axe would not lie on the roots, but would be thrown away and break. The same kind of opposition. And then about the meaning that those who have will be added to, and those who do not have, it will be taken from them. We find it, of course, in the parable of the talents in the New Testament. For unto everyone that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance, but from him that has not shall be taken away even that which he hath. And the very ending of the tractate, this is about the dance which would take place in the paradise in the end of the days, and tzaddikim will go around God dancing, and please 16. And what will be, and the Holy One, blessed be He, is destined to make a dance for the righteous, tzaddikim, and He will dwell among them in the Garden of Eden, and everyone will honor Him with a gesture. And then there is a quotation from Isaiah. Let me remind you that this is the very ending of the tractate. 16. 15. Next. 17. Here, the very ending of the tractate. Ну, нормально.
Сейчас, just a second.
Ниже.
Сейчас знаю.
This is the very ending of the tractate. This is our God, for Him we waited, and that He might save us. This is the Lord for whom He waited, and we will be glad and rejoice in His salvation. So, Nagila Nismicha. This is the ending, the last word of the tractate. In the end of the first chapter, there is no Simcha Tzaddikim. In the end, there is Simcha Tzaddikim. The opposition between Yashrei Lev and Tzaddikim is taken off. Everybody is going to be happy. Thank you very much for your attention. Please.